Welcome to the show. Last week, U.S. intelligence agencies released an unclassified report exposing in greater detail the efforts Russia made to interfere with the U.S. presidential election. Ron, do you think it's likely Donald Trump will try to sweep this under the rug when he takes office and not call attention to his controversial victory?
Absolutely. That's not the real story. The real story is, what is the rest of the country going to do? If all of the senators and the Congress and everybody that runs government and runs all of our agencies lets it go, then shame on the US of A. I mean, there's a far bigger story. I don't care what Donald Trump does. This isn't a Donald Trump issue. He can sweep it under the rug all he wants, which he will and has. Mm-hmm. It's up to everybody else to take the lead. And now that Senator McCain is far more involved in this process than what we originally knew, I think it's up for a lot of different people to take the lead on what's happened.
Well, I think you're bringing up a very good point, which is that it's not surprising that a foreign power, whether it be Russia, China, anybody else in the world, would be trying to, in some way, shape, or form, influence our elections. We have done the same in the past with other countries. The fact that they not only have done it, but we have proof that they did it, and it may potentially arguably have had some sort of an effect, I think becomes a much more concerning issue.
So wait a minute. Let's back the truck up here a minute. They hacked. I don't think that should surprise anyone. To say that they interfered with our elections, I think is a gross overstatement, and here's why. Nobody has disputed that the stuff that came out from WikiLeaks and all this other stuff isn't true. If there was nothing there to report, Hillary Clinton probably would be president at this point. You know, if you break into a jewelry store and there's no jewelry to rob, to steal, you get nothing. Now, you still broke into the jewelry store, and that's bad, and we should not tolerate that at all. And we should do everything in our power to assure that doesn't happen. But if there was no story to tell, then they would not. Then the election results would have not been interfered with.
So here's a question for you, Jim. And I think the one thing that came out in the intelligence is that they broke into both the DNC and the RNC.
Right.
So, you know, and my personal opinion is really that whatever leaks there were had probably very little to do with the outcome of the election. The concern is that you have a foreign power that chose to expose only half the information to one party. That, I think, is not so much, and we should be concerned about the fact that they're trying to break into organizations that are part of our election system, but the fact that they're taking a side and trying to influence the outcome of the election, whether it actually had an effect or not, is, I think, the real concern here.
Maybe there wasn't a story on the Republican side.
Janice,
come on, with what was going on the Republican side.
I'm not going to argue with Jim over this right yet, but what do you think about what's happened?
I think what's more concerning is the fact of what's going on from a cybersecurity standpoint. Because if they're hacking into our election process, into both major committees, parties, information, what else are they hacking into? And we have plenty of other countries out there that don't like us. Need we mention North Korea? So how many other hacks and what other systems and what other programs are being attacked? Because to me, one of the other big concerning things that really doesn't even get talked about anymore is the fact that OPM, which, let's face it, this is who does payroll for the U.S. government. So all military personnel, veterans, military contracts, all that. When OPM was hacked, all of those identities, all of those people, all of their, you know, if you served in the military, Army Reserves, whatever, you got hacked and your private information is out there. So this isn't just about the election process. It isn't just about the results. It isn't one more thing to gripe about between Hillary and Trump. We have people, bad guys, trying to hack into the United States from A to Z of take what agency, take what entity you want to look at in order to wreak havoc in some form or fashion.
You're
So-
exactly right.
So the question is, what are we going to do about it? And what are we going to do to start with the Oval Office? What are we doing for cyber awareness and cybersecurity in order to protect? It's just like if you have a house. You put on an alarm system and you lock your windows, you lock your doors, and you lock everything. It's like, well, how do you do it from a cyber perspective?
This
You don't.
brings a specific light on a much bigger problem, because the specific light is shining on the fact that it was election related. You know, the election, I don't think anybody, at least not that I've heard, has suggested they hacked the ballot boxes.
No, they did not, and that's a closed system, and therein lies the difference. There is no security. The minute you develop a security strategy, somebody is going to be able to hack around it. So if a system is connected to the web and it's accessible from outside, it is prone to be hacked. There's no way around that. So DoD, so there's a couple of things there. You know, when it comes to the Department of Defense specifically, nobody in DoD would be in an OPM database unless they are in a transition period and going someplace else, because OPM and DoD, the way they handle personnel files are completely different. And once somebody is separated from the military, they go to St. Louis and are completely out of the government system. So a couple of nuances there. The DoD network was designed during the 1970s and 80s to be completely isolated. So they have a completely separate network that is not connected to the internet. That's why they don't get hacked. China has an exact copy of the F-117, our stealth fighter. Why do they have that? They didn't hack DoD. They hacked the contractor that's manufacturing that plane. I've worked with a lot of military contractors in the past. All the very security. So forget the government, because the government is always several generations behind on security. But think about banks. Think about financial institutions. They invest literally tens of millions of dollars to have the best security in place, and they get
Hospitals.
hacked.
Yeah.
Hospitals, doctors' offices.
And I hate to say this, it's going to sound really wrong, but on the security front, hospitals hold nothing against financial institutions. If you want to look for the most secure organizations out there, financial institutions are it, and they get hacked.
No, but these are the organizations that are going to be hacked. Because it's like, who has information that the hackers are going to, what has value?
Well, okay, so that's a great question. What value is there in medical information? Aside from PII, which you can get anywhere else, there's no account information, or very little account information. It doesn't have bank account information unless they have credit card numbers. But I mean, anytime you go to a store and you scan your credit card in, the same information a hospital would have when they run your billing is going to be available at 7-Eleven. So, and I'm not trying to debate that point, but on the scale of security, as much as we think HIPAA information is very critical, it's not anywhere near as protected as other information is.
Okay, let's get back and talk now about the president, about the election, and about what the question was.
Okay.
What are they going to do about what has happened? Now, we held the hearings on Benghazi.
Right.
We held and made the comments with WikiLeaks on what Hillary Clinton did. So Hillary Clinton was totally guilty. She lost. And in the public opinion, 3 million more people voted for her, but the Electoral College gave it to Trump. What are we going to do now to get to the root of what has happened with Russia interfering in our election process? Did they hack? Did they get into machines? No. And Trump knows that that's not what the issue was. It's what the information was that came out from hacked emails from Podesta and all of those people that created a problem. What are we going to do now to solve this, as you all say, going forward?
So I think that, and Donald Trump held a press conference this week, and somewhere between telling CNN that they were a fake news network, which was actually kind of funny, but that's another story, and a number of other comments, he was asked very directly about the hacking thing. And he said, they shouldn't do it, they shouldn't have done it, and under my administration, they won't do it. Now, that's really the only level of comment we have from him. I think as a country, we need to hold his feet and the government's feet to the fire, because this does have, you know, the hack that you were talking about, whether it's just transitional people or not, the fact of the matter is there's no reason that we should not invest heavily in making sure that our data is secure, that our military is secure. And I know the whole ITAR thing with the separate network for the DoD. We need to have top rate security everywhere in our government.
We do. So a couple of things there, and Trump, although this is the first public statement, in the Twitter sphere, certainly has not been shy about saying that he didn't believe Russia was involved in anything. So I think it's not entirely accurate to say this is the first statement he's made.
No. I said that's the only. Well, maybe I misstated. That is the most recent statement he has made, and it was made in a traditional press conference environment. It was
That wasn't anything close to a traditional press conference.
Well, it was.
That was the farthest thing you've ever seen.
It's as close as you'll probably get from him.
Right.
Most likely, yes.
Times are changing.
Yep, and that's okay.
Don't have a problem with it. But the hearings do not have to change.
No.
Let's do as much investigative work on what has happened with the Russians now and the comments that have been made as we did with Hillary Clinton and her escapades.
I have absolutely no problem with that. I also think that forget about the Congress, because in some respects congressional hearings are a waste of time.
You want an independent counsel?
No, I want people on the back end. I want security experts looking into it covertly and doing something about it in the back end, regardless. The congressional hearings are at some level a show.
It is a show. Absolutely.
I don't want a show. I want results.
I totally agree.
So I think you guys get the last word on that. Up next, we'll take a closer look at President Obama and a legacy he'll be leaving behind. We'll be back in 3 minutes.